The book of Ecclesiastes begins with an introduction by the writer. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 1. So no prizes for guessing who the writer was. Solomon. Here Solomon saw himself speaking to an assembly as a preacher or teacher about the meaning of life. Solomon saw life as meaningless because the people he saw was caught up in the chances and the changes of life. And that was why in the next line he wrote, "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." Or in our modern terms, meaningless, meaningless, says the preacher. Meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless. Solomon used the word vanity or meaningless 35 times in this short book. Solomon then said, "What profit has a man from all his labor in which is toils under the sun?" Chapter 1 and verse 3. In other words, what's the use of working so hard and trying to fulfill our dreams when life is meaningless under the sun? The phrase "under the sun" refers to Solomon's drawing his conclusion that life was meaningless from the earthly point of view. Well, not from God's point of view. He felt that humans have been in pursuit of many things in life, pursuing unrealistic goals and aspirations under the sun, and yet caught up with the many chances and changes of life, life's uncertainties leading to disillusionment. Isn't this our experience in life too? We toil under the sun to achieve our personal goals in life, and at times got caught up with the many uncertainties of life. Sicknesses, financial issues can happen unpredictably. Who could ever predict the coming of this current pandemic with terrible losses of life? How many lives have been ruined all of a sudden because of job losses and sicknesses? Human relationship and attitudes can change. Solomon said in chapter 3 and in verse 1, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." We have to admit that change is one thing that is constant in life. We go through the many seasons of life, up and down, ebb and flow. This verse, chapter 3 and verse 11 of Ecclesiastes, is the crowning glory of Solomon in his search for meaning in life, where he decided to look above the sun. He has made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has put eternity in their heart, except that no one can find out the work that God does from the beginning to the end. Firstly, we are not alone to strive on our own. Solomon says, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to the end. God has been working in this world all the time from beginning to the end. He has been fulfilling his purpose for the world and for us. It is mysterious in some sense that we do not see his unseen hand. And that's why Solomon said, no one can find out the unseen work of God. Yes, God is doing an unseen work in our life, fulfilling his purpose in us, even though we do not sense his presence. Even in our frustrations of being caught up in the chances and changes of life, we can and will make a deliberate choice to look above the sun. We can see possibilities among the impossibilities. when life seems purposeless and meaningless. Secondly, we are not alone trying to reach above the sun. God has made it all possible for us to look above the sun. Solomon says he has put eternity in their hearts. God, by his grace, gives humanity a sense of his existence and presence. That is still that small voice in us. The voice of the Holy Spirit that prompts us to look up to God, look above the sun. We seek God's comfort and his strength to see us through. Thirdly, we are not alone to make sense of life. God has made everything beautiful in his time. In the seasons of life, we experience brokenness, we experience sorrows and anger. We may not understand God's purpose for us in suffering, but there is the promise of God given to all of us. In its time, he has made everything beautiful. In our pain, our loss, our brokenness and shattered dreams, there are possibilities among the impossibilities. There are certainties in the midst of uncertainties. God is with us in every season of life to make something beautiful out of our ashes and our brokenness. We will come through stronger and able to see possibilities among the impossibilities, more resilient to the chances and changes of life. Jesus brings us a blessed change in our season of life. As prophesied by Isaiah, Jesus is here with us to give us a word of comfort. He gives beauty for ashes, oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. That's Isaiah 61 and verse 3. Won't you choose to look above the sun and trust him? Trust in the unseen hand of God who works in our life from beginning to end. He has made everything beautiful in his time.